Yeah, I saw, I seen that like at the end of it last night, because everyone's running out the door.
Yeah, like,
Stuff.
I was in the like press floor, like tester floor, and a couple of them left by her. And it was like,
Yeah.
you need those from,
Yeah.
interesting. But then you might walk by.
Oh, for
So, I feel like we don't need that. That's what.
Yeah. Well, like, I don't know, they have like contract and stuff, and I feel like y'all are so covered over there. But
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't have to think of it, and we're,
but it makes me feel bad, you know, like I leave at a regular hour.
If you want,
we're
I
like,
should
okay,
call.
you do this thing, I come home later, I was really sad. But it's fine.
Okay.
And also like, we really don't.
Yeah.
But
Say, start from the beginning.
Should wait 15 minutes.
Okay. One more time. How you been? Good. How's it feel being here? What's I saw you the other day, you didn't have the one.
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah, so like,
Quick, you gotta.
Kids here only get to play, wife only lets me go once a week, because we have Mondays and Thursdays. Play, in Montreal on Coalition Highway. There's 2 gyms out there.
yeah, I don't know, I just want my family to go to the shop. Hurts my arm. We can go together. We got a shot and stuff.
but I mean,
But I definitely agree, like, once you get it, yeah.
Usually there's 3.
Yeah. They were so bad. Yeah. I was just debilitated. I slept for 20 hours a day.
Split them up though.
Okay.
Pretty sure they left.
These boys.
It was just so
Oh, well, they heard the plug, so it fell over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it folds over and it can.
Yeah, right, because still, I didn't feel your phone.
Yeah, I like, so I don't know. Kind of just working, and then like,
Somebody followed me.
I feel like you can, and then she
Oh, gorgeous.
Well, that's a good outlet.
Very, very typical.
Just the boost, the boost.
Gonna get other people sick. It works fine.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it does. Get very focused on it.
Oh my god. No, I'm.
If you like two filters, otherwise you're appropriate.
Yeah.
Like you can't take it, and you need more protection.
Yeah. Oh my god.
But then like,
Yeah.
and I was like,
No,
oh sure, like of course, but then like because he's so
Right.
sick, drive him home, like so I then like drove him home by myself.
That's horrible.
And I was like, by myself, like doing it, and like, there's older man next to me.
I do, but I've been doing it all.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Same thing.
However,
Yeah, but.
I mean, you guys, one big thing.
Yesterday, we did the first one.
That's just so it'll take some
30 or whatever.
You do 4-8 and there's some sort of summary.
well, there you go.
George and Taylor, Chung Carl.
Yeah. I know it's gonna cost you.
Bunch of people didn't have cell phone to do that.
Well, but if you find your pocket, it doesn't matter. It's just a phone.
We're working on copies.
Anyone protest
George teases me.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I never.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're hot.
No, and like.
Oh. I hope those things don't happen.
I mean, yeah, it was
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Not my ex, but I'm later.
Hope to avoid that.
Me too. But you know what? I'd rather do it.
Oh.
Actually.
Well, no one's gonna stop this radio, so it's before they make it.
Yeah.
This is gonna be.
Go an abstract.
Yes. This is my.
But around here.
Yeah.
So what's the?
Yes, or,
Well, that point, yeah.
you know, that's the biggest threat.
I don't know if that happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I don't know. polarized television.
Okay, I'm not a big fan.
Right, I got that. I did hear that.
Did you find anything good in those?
She's gonna look into it. Take a look. So, we're right below the microphone. And the microphones are always on. When there's a press conference, the microphones are on, so. Just have to discuss it. There's some ears listening.
No, I'm saying he's like the reference standard.
I'll look.
They walked out the residence.
But I can't go on. Hey, how are you? Yeah, yeah, it's sunny. Okay, I can turn this on.
It'll go back, it'll go back.
Exactly.
I could be wrong.
How are you? Were you okay? I saw you yesterday.
So Nancy Pelosi is always late.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, that sounds nice.
It's where that's on. You'll see it's where that's on.
Not that I know, but. Probably not, but it's not. I'm very skeptical.
So that's
No,
all
that's
I'm like.
entertaining television.
Like people like Susan.
Although it's better than teachers.
That's entertaining television.
But she always takes the difference. So I don't have that. She always ends up going back to her. I'm only hypothesizing.
I'm down with that.
In some things, they're difficult. I know I'm a
Everyone
senator.
really?
I worked, when it was my local
Thank you.
assembly, I worked in his office one day. This is my.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
I'm from that big one.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know.
It's not mine, it's not mine.
No, I think you would, but I don't think there is such.
No, I don't think you would.
Oh, okay.
Usually for Pelosi, it's packed. It's not very crowded.
Yeah.
Everything else going on. Tension is on the Senate side.
So they're getting rid of
So what they do is they keep the front door for
what?
the camera guys.
I
And
mean, on some of them I do.
then they put
The company doesn't pay for
placeholders
filters, so.
on,
For the correspondence.
All the filters that I have
So-
are ones,
and you see they've got
so
some
I already have.
audio
Okay,
cable
see, I don't.
taped down,
Mm-hmm.
so they'll get them on camera with their questions.
Yeah.
And the, so it's usually the front row that's asking most of the questions, but they'll go up around. Never ask any questions. I don't think they like the questions that I would be asking.
Feel, that feel is way out here, you know, like this is so out of focus and so.
What it basically means is that
I'm not trying to shoot.
one of these,
No, no, I'm.
one of these lenses on anybody, and like really,
Oh, yeah.
shutter speeds and get
Well,
like,
you do landscape first. They go, you know, it's on the kind of, it's called, what's it called?
the lens stabilizer.
Here's an interesting thing.
So you can
They
shoot
go
like
every week. You got like,
Yeah.
this is not that.
That's lighten up.
Yeah.
You never can say you like, it won't be seen, it won't be heard.
Has he had interface with Wilson? He said he doesn't know. Staff hasn't had conversation. He's protected by there's a speech and debate clause for members of Congress, so they can say anything they want with immunity. And Harry Reid, who's a former majority leader, used to say he was one of the key ones. Mitt Romney didn't pay his taxes. He just lied blatantly on the floor. But he was protected by the speech and debate clause. So Mitt Romney had no impact. Mitt Romney filed his taxes, and he knew that he was lying. So the world was reporting Mitt Romney didn't pay his taxes. He's cheating on his taxes. You know, this wealthy man, and he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. And Harry got away with it. It's crazy, the stuff that these guys do. Don't trust the government.
Yeah.
I love pizza.
Okay, so this is one of the key communications guys for Nancy Pelosi. So when he comes in, you know that she's about ready to walk out.
Right.
Don't. Sometimes they come out, they'll be so warning. Excuse me. But sort of a cue is photographers come in, that guy comes in. You'll see a member of the staff come up and put her notepad up and open it up so for her what she's going to say. It's charts. You get to see charts. Hey, I was watching.
With your permission.
Yeah. Be there the whole time?
Right?
Beyond Pelosi.
That's Holly that she walks home.
So there's your cue. It's always like, we used to sit up here and do an over and under. Put the cameras on, joking with the camera guys in the back, that you would be here. So it was a 10:45 scheduled press conference.
Good morning. As we gather here on the floor of the House, we are debating two resolutions, the Ro Khanna resolution about there not being any war in Iraq without congressional approval, and the Barbara Lee resolution, which is she has been working on for a very long time, which addresses the authorization of the use of force in the region. Here we are with Moving Forward Framework, which we rolled out yesterday, our infrastructure initiative. In the election of 2018, House Democrats' platform was for the people. For the people, we would lower the cost of health care by lowering the cost of prescription drugs and protecting the pre-existing condition benefits. For the people, we would increase paychecks, lower health care costs, bigger paychecks, by building the infrastructure of America in a green way. And for the people, we would have cleaner government. We passed H.R. 1, which we continue to call for, which lowers the role of big, dark money in politics, which strives to end the voter suppression that the Republicans find as their most effective political action, is to suppress the vote, and other issues that relate to that's legislation put forth by John Sarbanes, but part of it is advanced by John Lewis, the voter suppression part of it. So here we are with Moving Forward, and this is a $760 billion initiative over 5 years. When we spoke to the president about infrastructure, and I believe that he cares and wants to do something about infrastructure, he talked about $2 trillion over 10 years. This 760 over 5 years is $1.5 trillion over 10, and that still affords us that this is about what we talked about fixing broken roads, bridges, transit systems, railway, airport, ports, water system, brownfields, and broadband. So that's about this piece of it. We still will be addressing the issue of school construction and housing construction. School construction is so important of itself. We tell children that education is important, that they should study, and important to their own self-fulfillment and to that of our country, and yet we send some of them to schools that are so self-standard that it sends a different message to children. So the school construction piece, which respects the value of education and meets the needs of our children, will be part of what comes next for us in infrastructure, as well as housing. If we're going to address infrastructure, addressing housing is essential because we want proximity of people to the workplace so that we are keeping people off the road, and a lot of it is about clean air, clean water. It's a public health issue, lowering the pollution in the air and increasing the quality of life, improving commerce, diminishing the time of products getting to market and the rest. So we're very excited about this, and we believe that the fundamentals that are in it are fundamentals that we've always advanced. Now we have more broadband, especially rural broadband, but also urban broadband, that very important for education, for jobs, for health care, for quality of life in our country. And I think it's pretty exciting. And again, infrastructure has never been partisan. We've always been able to work in a bipartisan way on that. And we would hope as a priority for us that it would be a priority that we establish that is unifying and not dividing in our country. Same with H.R. 3. That was lower health care costs. H.R. 3, lower the cost of prescription drugs. In the campaign, the president said that that was a priority. We trust that that is still true. He did, and we think central to that is negotiation, and giving the secretary the power to negotiate for lower drug prices. And the president in the campaign said he would negotiate like crazy. I don't know what like crazy means to him, but nonetheless, it is a negotiation is very, very required. So it is hopefully has not fallen prey to pharma because they're very much opposed to the negotiations. This week, actually later today, sadly, in stark contrast to our For the People agenda for having health care for all Americans that is quality, affordable, and accessible. Today, later this morning, the administration will unveil its latest effort to take away America's health care, their new Medicaid block grant scheme. 1 in 5 people in America, my understanding is, on Medicaid. Yet again, having failed to repeal the law, they're still in court trying to repeal the law while they're saying, oh, we're for pre-existing condition benefit. No, they're in court trying to repeal that. Having failed to repeal it so far, the administration has decided to ignore the law with potentially devastating consequences for families and seniors who depend as a lifeline on Medicaid. Trump administration want to cap and cut Medicaid, could have ruinous effects on rural hospitals, on people in opiate addiction, because that's where the resources come from to address that. Seniors who depend on it for long-term care. It is actually a middle-income benefit, seniors on long-term care. So here we are. They are taking steps because they've never really believed in Medicare and Medicaid. And now they are trying to undo it, and that is their mission. And that is a fight that the American people must engage in because it affects them and their families very, very directly. A new Kaiser Family Foundation poll today shows that the Americans disapprove of President Trump's handling of the Affordable Care Act by 56 to 35 because he wants to repeal it. And how he's handling the issue of lowering prescription drug prices, they disapprove of his approach, 54 to 30. He can address both of those things. The American people recognize that he is attacking protections for people with pre-existing conditions, and that's really vital. That's 30 million families. And again, we hope he hasn't caved to Big Pharma on this. So there we are. Again, we are very proud of our legislative agenda, which I'm happy to go through again if you wish. But I also am very proud of our managers. We believe that they have been magnificent custodians of the Constitution by dint of their content, their presentation, their historic perspective, and their tone. They have made us all proud, and I've told our colleagues they give us a magnificent example to follow. And they do so in the face of the president's team is there to dismantle the Constitution of the United States. And some of them are even lawyers. Imagine that you would say ever of any president, no matter who he or she is or whatever party, if the president thinks that his or her presidency, in this case his presidency, is good for the country, then any action is justified, including encouraging a foreign government to have an impact on our elections, which is exactly what our founders were opposed to, and they feared. The day we were bringing the articles to the floor, I quoted the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive remembers that famous day and year. Those of you who remember Longfellow's poem know that in there he says the English are coming, the English will coming. We'll let you know one if by land, two if by sea. In this case, the Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. And the president has led a clear path for them to interfere, once again, in our elections, as they are currently doing. I said then, as Longfellow said then, fate of the nation was riding that night. Fate of our nation, our democracy, our Constitution, our system of checks and balances, the exquisite beauty of our Constitution, the genius of a system of checks and balances. The president seems to be emulating a French king who said, "L'État, c'est moi." The state, it's me. No. Article 2 does not say you can do whatever you want. The Constitution does not say that. But these, I don't know how they can retain their lawyer status in the comments that they are making. I just pray that the senators will have the courage and the ability to handle the truth instead of blocking the truth from themselves in the decision and from the American people. For that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Yes, sir.
Last year you said that you wouldn't support a UK trade deal if Brexit would harm the Good Friday Accord.
Yes.
Now that Brexit, the details are there and it's moving forward, are you prepared to support a trade deal with the UK?
Well, we don't know how it'll affect it. I stay close to the proceedings and with the Irish government to see how that border is effective. I don't think we'll know for a while. There's, an 11-month period, and I think we have to see what really does work. I hope and pray that it's okay and that we don't have to engage in this, but I don't think that we can make a judgment on the strength of the EU saying they have accepted Brexit. I do think that the Irish are optimistic, and we'll see, and I think that perhaps Prime Minister Boris Johnson knows how important this is, but we have to, proof will be in the pudding.
Madam Speaker, do you want John Bolton to testify in the House if the Senate fails to call him as a witness?
I think we're just taking this is in the Senate now, and I still hope that, as I said, and I hope and I pray that the senators can handle the truth and will listen to not only John Bolton but other witnesses as well. They'll see what happens after that. Yes, ma'am.
Speaker Pelosi, would you also possibly consider, if the Senate decides not to call witnesses, bringing other civil officers that have been appointed by the president up for impeachment?
Well, not getting to that. We are in the Senate. We did our job. We had a strong case of impeachment of the President of the United States. No matter what the senators have the courage or not to do, he will be impeached forever. We believe our argument is strong enough for removal. But we do believe that there's more truth for the American people to know. It is important for them to know. Not that we think we needed to bolster our case, but because we needed to prove to the American people that never should this happen again, that any president of any party, of any gender, he or she might be, that it is wrong, it is unconstitutional, that he has undermined our national security and withholding funds from a country that was fighting our adversary, Russia. The president doesn't see Russia as an adversary. As I've said, I don't know what the Russians have on the president politically, personally, or financially, but he doesn't see Russia as an adversary for the right. But on the other hand, we're building resources in Europe against Russia. So we think the case is a very strong one. He undermined our national security. It jeopardized the integrity of our elections, and he violated the Constitution for his own political and personal benefit. Just an average person in our country must think that it's more important for him or for her to decide who our president is, not up to Vladimir Putin.
As far as the president being presumably acquitted, what is the follow-up as far as Democrats are concerned? More subpoenas, more
We did
investigations?
have just 3 questions to that effect, and I said we're still hopeful.
But are you looking to do more subpoenas and
No,
more
one second.
investigations?
1, 2, no, not you, you were Brexit. 2, 3, we are right now prayerful and hopeful that the Senate will have the courage to hear the truth about the president's actions, and then we'll see what we do next. Yes, sir.
I'll give it a different try. When this is over, do you think that President Trump will be chastened and understand that he's got a Congress watching him, or will he be emboldened because the Senate will have acquitted him?
Well, he will not be acquitted. You cannot be acquitted if you don't have a trial, and you don't have a trial if you don't have witnesses and documentation and that. I would hope that the senators, if it comes to a tie, or if there's a question of hearing testimony or receiving documents, would leave it up to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Republican appointed, in a Republican majority court, I would think that they would have confidence in the Chief Justice of the United States. That's really his title. And that's interesting to me, that they're afraid of breaking a tie with the Chief Justice of the United States. Does the president know right from wrong? I don't think so. That's all I can say. Yes, sir.
Last question.
The president's defense team in the floor yesterday really made the case that if you open up the door for witnesses, that they would intend to drag this out for months and months. They said, maybe we'll do impeachment every month, and except for the summertime, or something like that, I think is what Jay Sekulow said.
Well,
Are
I
you
disagree
prepared
with
to
the
take
first
that
part
into-
of your sentence, that they made the case. I don't think they made the case at all. I think they tried to avoid the truth in what they said. And so the point is that first they say, well, why didn't we wait for the courts to go through this and that? Well, because justice delayed is justice denied. We would not be able to get our work done. But they could subpoena those same people and save a great deal of time. So I know that may have been a figure of speech, but I don't think they made the case. I think they disgraced themselves terribly in terms of their violation of what our Constitution is about and what a president's behavior should be.
But you seem ready to move on to these other agenda items, whether it's infrastructure or protecting health care.
We've been working on our agenda for the results for the American people the whole time. We have sent 400 bills, 275 of them bipartisan, to Mitch McConnell's desk. We would hope that they say, oh, they're preventing us from doing our work because we have to do impeachment. No, for one solid year, you have done nothing. Then they said, well, if you don't send impeachment soon, we're going to pass the Mexico retreat agreement. Bravo. Let's do it. And by the way, you barely recognize it. I don't know if the president would recognize what he sent and what we sent him back, because I'm very proud of that. But no, we have been working on our agenda. And so, some of the priorities are ending gun violence by having our H.R. 8 legislation to have common sense background check legislation, raising the minimum wage, equal pay for equal work, climate action now, LGBTQ equality protection for the LGBTQ community, issues that relate to our dreamers, and so no, we have a long list of accomplishments, but we're getting back to here. For the people, H.R. 3, lower the cost of prescription drugs and take the savings which are taken from pharma, from the profits of pharma, and expand in a way that is more than ever since the existence, the establishment of Medicare. Use that money for expanding dental, visual, and hearing benefits. We want the Senate to take that up. And pretty soon we'll be introducing this legislation, we would hope in a bipartisan way, so that it could be job creating, commerce promoting, quality of life improving, and to do so in a way that creates jobs all over America. So we have been hard at work on our agenda all along. I would hope that they've done nothing. I mean, they've done nothing. They passed this or that or the other thing a little bit. And then finally, Mexico, because they said I hadn't sent them the impeachment articles when they wanted them. But they were afraid of what would emerge. And now what has emerged is more information that is incriminating to this president. We have a situation. We have a situation where, again, the fate of our nation is riding on how this is resolved. It isn't about just one person. It's about the precedent that it set for the future. It's not about whether you like Donald Trump or not. It's not about it's not personal, it's not political, it's not partisan. It's about patriotism. It's about undermining the system of checks and balances, and that is what they are doing on the Senate floor in these days. I guess they'll go in about 1 o'clock today. How shameful of them. And then again, when you think of the sacrifice of our founders, and Thomas Paine said the times that found us in the darkest days of the revolution, to declare independence, to fight a war, to win it, to write our founding documents, for Benjamin Franklin to say, when asked about what government we have, a republic if we can keep it. often wondered why he said that, as if it could ever be in doubt, except this president has placed it in doubt by saying, Article 2 says I can do whatever I want. And it is really quite shameful that the sacrifice of our men and women in uniform who vote to defend that freedom contained in the document, and the aspirations of our children into the future to always know that they live in a democracy and not in a monarchy. And they ask, a monarchy or a republic if we can keep it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Not for Article 2 that says I can do whatever I want, monarchy for which it stands. Thank you all very much. Hey, go Niners. He's not here. Was Chad getting ready for the game or something?
He's on the Senate side.
He left. I mean, all he keeps talking about is the Bengals are going to make a comeback. They're going to be there pretty soon. That's what he was telling me yesterday. Anyway, thank you all very much.
We're gonna come back into the park.
United States-Mexico-Canada trade agreement. This is a massive win for America. Mexico is our #1 trader and Canada is our second. It only makes us stronger by every indication and every measure. The sad part was I didn't even see any public comments in support from Speaker of the House yesterday. But back on Capitol Hill, Democrats continue to be obsessed with their thinnest, weakest, and most partisan impeachment in the history of the United States. And the ringleader of it all, Chairman Adam Schiff, lied once again. As I watched, he was asked a direct question yesterday about his interactions with the whistleblower, and he repeated the same lines he has said in the past. 17 of the 18 transcripts have been let go. One has not. 179 pages. The Inspector General. I wonder why. What's interesting is having been leaked to the New York Times. Did we ever imagine if any of this was bad for the president, it would first be leaked and then be released? Interesting to me that Adam Schiff said he couldn't release it. I guess he can. All he has to do is call his committee together and have it done. But he never allowed it to happen. Interesting that this all started because there was an IG letter about a whistleblower. Adam Schiff told us he did not know who this person was. Later we found out he did. Later we found out that they met. It'd be interesting on the question, did they meet before the Inspector General? Did the Inspector General know that his staff had met? I guess if some of that was true, the only person who knows the answer to those questions are Adam Schiff, who's the only person who is denying us the ability to have that answer. Could he be a fact witness? I guess that transcript could probably tell us something. Could a fact witness in any of our legal bases of America be in charge? No. So it begs to wonder why. Why would he not release it? Of all of them that he released, which was all the others. And if he started all this when I first watched him, he was very concerned that the whistleblower would never be able to testify, and somehow the administration would stop that whistleblower. Well, that whistleblower was stopped. The same person who met him, the only person in the house, Adam Schiff. But that's not all that is happening at the expense of saving American lives. The one thing I found with these Democrats, everything that's not given. Take, for example, what happened just this week. The Senate had passed a bill dealing with fentanyl, making sure our streets would still be safe. Judiciary Committee hadn't done anything. Republicans had to shame them this week about it, to find that they moved something from the late last night. How many other things are not getting done because all the focus is just on impeachment? This should make every American wonder, when will this nightmare end? When can we go back to doing what the American people expect us to do? What's interesting to me, I watched the president just in the last month, this week alone, have a meeting with foreign leaders about Middle East peace, sign an agreement with China that no one thought could happen, sign an agreement of USMCA that no one gave him the ability to get done, all making the world safer and stronger. The Democrat majority only has one thing to show: a continual investigation of this president, instead of working on what the American people expect us to do. And then we have today. Going along with the motto of this new Democrat majority that believes in blaming America first. A debate on the floor about AUMF, but doing it in a tactic that has not been used and taken away in 100 years. A motion to recommit. A motion to recommit is one amendment to be used by the minority to make sure they have a voice. To be used in a voice on important issues. I would think this is probably one of the most important issues that we ever do. Ro Khanna bragged about the idea that Leader Hoyer would be willing to change a 100-year history and tradition of the House, so they would not have to debate. Did they give the amendment that I put on the floor? No. Rules Committee denied it. They took a gold medal bill that we had already voted on, got an amendment, just to change the rules so you could not debate something so important. And at the end of the day, if this became law, if there was any American that was kidnapped, and we actually knew where they were, we could not send the Navy SEALs in to save them. Or a U.S. merchant ship going through those waters, we could not send them. They're being attacked by the Iranians, we could not protect them. Or that we had intelligence that the Iranians were going to attack New York or even Jerusalem. We could not do anything. America will not be safer, we will be weaker. One of the reasons why we're going to be weaker, because this new socialist Democrat Party, the dislike for President Trump, they're willing to change a century tradition simply to deny people to have a vote. They believe their policy was so strong, why wouldn't they allow debate? Why wouldn't they allow amendments? Why wouldn't they allow a vote of an MTR that the Republicans in the majority never denied? I guess it just shows how weak their ideas are. So the next question.
I've heard that the Trump administration, when they were briefing the Republican caucus on the votes today, that they argued that the Cotton Gates amendment would have prevented the Soleimani strike. Is that accurate? And if it had become law in the NDAA, do you think that strike would have gone forward?
I have real concerns that if that would ever go forward and tie the president's hands, that America would be weaker, and it shows exactly that fact. You look at the Soleimani attack, that the deterrent that has happened with inside Iran. You listen to a General Petraeus saying how important this was. You look at the world being safer because of that action. And then I just watched, and let's compare this. What is on the floor today by trying to tie the president's hand when he had intelligence of what Soleimani was going to do in the future, to deny him the ability to do it. We just watched 2 weeks ago, when young college students inside Iran would not walk across an American flag that their government put up. And they said, the enemy's in Iran, not in America. The Democrats wouldn't even let a resolution go. What message do you think that says to the world? And just what you said, the policy itself is wrong. The process is different than we've done in 100 years to deny the right to even have debate about it, which you would like to have. And you know what's worse? The timing. They're sitting trying to impeach a president, and they're sending the wrong message to the regime. They will not send a message of support to those who protest, who believe in the idea of freedom. They vote that down. The protesters get a very clear message from the Democrats, but the regime gets even a clearer message from them. They continue to do what we had feared they would do in the future. That is what's wrong with what's going on today.
Congressman.
Yes, ma'am.
Yesterday, Bernie Sanders put out a statement saying that if he becomes the Democratic nominee and if he does become president, that he would immediately begin renegotiating the USMCA. Does that concern you, that he's making that threat? And what message do you think that sends to your trading partners, Canada and Mexico?
Which is another reason why he should never become president. An idea that you're going to make America have a more level playing field. Every economist will tell you that our GDP will be stronger. There'll be more Americans working. But, he's true to his socialist beliefs. At the same time that the establishment of the Democratic Party holding the papers. So here we are having an Iowa caucus just next week. Bernie Sanders hasn't been able to campaign along with the other senators. Because you know who has been there the whole time? Joe Biden. It's interesting that the establishment of the Democratic Party would do anything to try to stop Bernie Sanders. Maybe they disagree with some of his ideas too, but I guess he's surging in Iowa from right here.
Question? Dershowitz has put forward a couple of provocative legal theories this week. One on Monday, that if a president has any mixed motive, he can't be impeached or removed. And then yesterday he went further and said that that motive can be his own reelection, that itself is good enough, and in that sense, he could never be removed from office, never be impeached. Do you agree with that?
You know, That's probably a question for Dershowitz on his legal opinion. The one thing I know I have as a member of Congress, the question, does this rise to impeachment? No. What the president did was not wrong, it's not impeachable, and the bipartisan vote inside the House actually proved that, going against every requirement that the speaker set forth. And I look forward to, on Friday, this being over, and hopefully we can get back to America's business.
Should Robert Hyde, who you were pictured with, and who allegedly threatened a U.S. ambassador, drop out of the race? Should he drop out of the race, Congressman?